2025, I think, is going to be the year of Arch Manning in college football and at Texas. I have pretty high expectations for Arch Manning. I think maybe differently than some people, that the argument being, if his last name was Smith, he wouldn't ever. First of all, his last name ain't Smith, it's Manning. And two, I think that's misguided, because that's the same thing that people said about Peyton Manning when he came out of college, is that if his last name was Jones, he wouldn't be the number one overall pick. And he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and is going to go down in history as one of the top 5-10 quarterbacks of all time. I like Arch Manning. I think there's a lot of upside there, and I think he's going to play really well. But there's this persistent argument that I think is really stupid, or this complaint about Arch Manning and why people think that he's overhyped. And I saw Aaron Murray, former Georgia quarterback who's got a podcast, talk about this last week, that if is reason that the expectations for Arch Manning should be tempered is because if you're so great, if Arch Manning is so good, why wasn't he playing above Quinn Ewers when Quinn Ewers was a 7th round draft pick? And on the surface, that makes logical sense, right? If you're supposed to be the quasi number one quarterback on the big board in 2026, how did you not beat out a 7th round quarterback that was playing before you? That feels like a logical question to ask on the surface. But that's not a surface level question, and it's not a surface level answer. Because do you want the answer to that question? Do you know what the answer is? If somebody says to you, if Arch Manning were so good, why was he the backup to a 7th round draft pick? The answer is that sometimes coaches are wrong. Sometimes coaches get it wrong. Sometimes they choose the wrong player. And this is not the first time that this has happened. And I don't know that I'm going to make the argument that Steve Sarkisian was wrong for playing Quinn Ewers over Arch Manning, because I don't think it's fair to compare 2025 Arch Manning versus 2024 Quinn Ewers, or 2026 Arch Manning versus 2024 Quinn Ewers. In 2024, conceivably, Quinn Ewers was better than Arch Manning. Arch Manning doesn't have to be a first-round quarterback draft talent in 2024 because he couldn't get drafted. It wasn't even a possibility. So he didn't have to worry about it. But sometimes coaches get this wrong. Sometimes they make the wrong decision. And sometimes it's not even the wrong decision. For instance, people flame Urban Meyer. He chose Dwayne Haskins over Joe Burrow. Yes, Joe Burrow had a historic 2019 season. It probably is the second best college football season of all time. But you know what? If Dwayne Haskins puts up the same numbers that he put up that same season, virtually any other year, he wins the Heisman Trophy. Dwayne Haskins was not some schlub in college. Did he not pan out in the NFL? Certainly. Did he have a tragic death? Absolutely. But I don't think Urban Meyer could have made a wrong choice when he was forced to choose between Dwayne Haskins and Joe Burrow. He chose Dwayne Haskins. Joe Burrow then went on and had a really stellar career at LSU in his final season and became the number one draft pick, led the Bengals to a Super Bowl, and is probably never going to get back there because he's not a miracle worker and the Bengals are the worst run organization in professional sports. That's not Joe Burrow's fault. I don't think Urban Meyer made a wrong decision. Now, I think you could argue Kirby Smart probably made a wrong decision because Justin Fields was sitting behind Jake Fromm. Let me say that again. Justin Fields, who I don't think is maybe an argument that was probably better than Jake Fromm at the start. But there's a whole litany of these situations. James Franklin chose Sean Clifford over Will Levis. Now, neither one of them went on to do a whole lot at the NFL level, but I don't know how you look at those two performances in college and think that that was the right decision. Sometimes coaches are wrong. Sometimes talent evaluators are wrong. Sometimes GMs are wrong. Sometimes recruiting scouts are wrong. This is not a perfect science. This is a wholly inexact science. So I can't say whether Arch Manning should have been starting over Quinn Ewers. But it's just a dumb argument because the argument is coaches are perfect and they make correct decisions 100% of the time. Have you ever watched a college football game? You ever sat there on the couch and questioned the intestinal fortitude of a coach because they're punting it on 4th and 2 at the plus 45? They get decisions wrong all the time. So why you would think that they get roster construction and personnel decisions and recruiting decisions correct 100% of the time feels like a pretty tall ask. And again, Arch Manning in 2025 can't be compared to Quinn Ewers in 2024. They're different players at different stages of their lives and careers. If it was Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning were in the same recruiting class and they both stayed at Texas for 4 or 5 years, and Arch Manning becomes Tom Brady, where Quinn Ewers is the starter for 4 years, and Arch Manning just goes, God, I wish I ever got my chance. And then he gets picked up in the 6th round of the NFL draft and goes on to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Then you can go, maybe Sark screwed that one up. Or why were you not playing behind that schlub? Lloyd Carr let Drew Henson dig Michigan into a hole every week and then let Tom Brady pull their ass out every week. Coaches make mistakes and get decisions wrong. So if the argument is, if Arch Manning is so good, why was he playing behind a 7th round quarterback? I would venture to guess 1. That implies that Steve Sarkisian made the correct decision. I don't have enough information to say, he probably got that one wrong. But then 2, I would tell you that Quinn Ewers is probably not your prototypical 7th round NFL draft pick. Supposedly, he was told by teams like, hey, we're not going to take you because you're better than where your draft slot is right now. And we don't want to have to answer questions about whether or not you deserve to be or have a bigger chance, et cetera, blah, 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 because you're number 1 overall recruit and all that stuff that comes with that. It's the same kind of playbook that Shedeur Sanders dealt with to a lesser extent because Mel Kiper Jr. didn't pound a hole through the table on the draft desk for Quinn Ewers. But I can see how somebody in the 6th round would say to Quinn Ewers, or the 5th round to Quinn Ewers, hey, we think you're better than this, but we don't want to have to answer a bunch of questions about our other young quarterback right now. So best of luck to you. I think there's still a chance Quinn Ewers has some modicum of success in the NFL as a 7th round draft pick. I really do. Because I think there's talent there. And I think if you get the right coach who does the right things and pulls the right triggers, that he can be a pretty decent pro quarterback. But that doesn't mean Arch Manning can't later on down the line either. And if Arch Manning balls out, leads Texas to the national championship and wins the Heisman Trophy, becomes a number 1 overall pick, goes on to a 17-year NFL career where he wins multiple Super Bowls and wins and becomes a Pro Football Hall of Famer. It doesn't make Steve Sarkisian right or wrong for starting Quinn Ewers in 2024. It's a dumb argument because 2025 Arch Manning should, in theory, be better and maybe even significantly better than 2024 Arch Manning. That's how development works. That's how coaching works. That's how progression happens. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. And I don't think you should be trying to make it one. I expect big things out of Arch Manning because the talent's there, and I think the coaching's there, and the talent around him is there. but I don't think you can compare him to 2024 Arch Manning, let alone 2024 Quinn Ewers. What do you think about Arch Manning in 2025? Do you expect him to be a breakout star, or do you expect him to have growing pains and struggle? And do you question whether or not he would have the hype that he has if his last name was Smith or Jones? I want to know in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you get all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the